Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to start with one of the most famous and honestly one of the most surprising encounters in all of ancient history.
So picture this. You have Alexander the Great, right? The most powerful man in the known world. He's just finished conquering nation after nation, and he walks up to this philosopher, Diogenes, who's basically just chilling in the sun. Alexander, in this moment of supreme power, offers him anything, literally anything his heart desires. And that is the reply he gets: stand out of my sunlight.
And what's so incredible about this moment is the power dynamic. Alexander, a man who could give anyone anything, suddenly realizes that Diogenes has a kind of freedom that all his armies, all his wealth, could never ever buy. How can you control a man who wants nothing you can possibly offer? You can't. This story is perfect because it sets up this crucial distinction that's going to frame everything we talk about today. It shows us that there are really two very, very different kinds of freedom. So, on one hand, you've got what we could call disciplined freedom. This is about resistance. It's gritting your teeth and using willpower to say no to something you want. But then there's this other kind, independence freedom. This is about release. It's the genuine, deep-down realization that you don't even need the thing in the first place. And that second one, that radical idea, that's what we're exploring. And to really get a handle on this kind of freedom, sometimes it's easier to look at its total opposite. And we get this perfect cautionary tale in an ancient story about a man named Qarun. Just pause and think about that for a second. We're not talking about his gold or his jewels, we're talking about a whole team of guys just to carry the keys. This isn't just a story about being rich, it's this powerful metaphor for being completely dependent on your own stuff. He didn't own his wealth, it absolutely 100% owned him. And this, right here, was his fundamental mistake. He believed his own talent, his own hard work, was the ultimate source of all his success. And by doing that, he basically fused his identity with his bank account. To question his wealth was to question his very existence. So he was trapped. He was living in the most beautiful, luxurious prison you could ever imagine. And the story ends with this really stark warning. The earth literally opens up and swallows him and his mansion. It's a pretty clear symbol of where that kind of attachment leads. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. Now let's flip it over and look at the counter-narrative. Because the very same text that gives us the story of Qarun also gives us this powerful contrast in the story of Moses. Now, by any worldly standard you can think of, Moses is in a way worse position than Qarun. He has literally been stripped of everything. But it's in this exact state, with nothing to his name, that he shows us what true independence, freedom, looks like. It's remarkable, because he has absolutely nothing to protect, no reputation to maintain, no assets to guard. He is totally free. Free to just see what's right in front of him, which is someone else's need, and to act with pure generosity. And now pay close attention to what he doesn't do. He doesn't hand God a shopping list. He's not asking for a job, a house, or security. He simply expresses this total trust, this radical openness to whatever comes next. It's the prayer of a man who is truly, deeply free.
So what happens? Well, the man who had nothing and who asked for nothing specific ends up receiving everything he actually needed. It's this incredible paradox. Qarun had everything and lost it all. Moses had nothing and gained everything.
Now, hold on. This isn't some kind of anti-wealth message. The lesson isn't that being rich is bad. The story of Yusuf, or Joseph, who brilliantly managed all of Egypt's wealth, proves that. The real issue, the thing that makes all the difference, is our orientation to the things we have.
And hey, this idea isn't isolated to just one tradition. You see it in Greek philosophy too. Thinkers like Epicurus argued that the fastest way to be happy wasn't to get more stuff, but to want less stuff. He had a word for this goal: ataraxia. It's this state of untroubled peace. It's exactly the freedom Diogenes had.
Honestly, Qarun's problem is alive and well today. It's that modern existential crisis a person has when they lose their job and feel like they've lost their entire identity. But it's also the anxiety of keeping up a social media following or the pressure to own a certain kind of car. We make the same mistake. We confuse what we have with who we are.
So let's just lay it all out, side by side. You can see the difference so clearly. It's not about what's in your hands, it's about how you're holding it in your heart. On one side, you've got an identity that's totally fused with your stuff, and it's driven by anxiety. On the other, you have an identity that's separate, and it's driven by trust.
It's like the internal operating system you're running. That's what changes everything.
So the big question is, right, how do we actually do this? How do we stop being, well, janitors for our own keys? This brings us to this core practice for developing this kind of freedom, a concept called taqwa, which is often translated as God consciousness.
But another way to think about taqwa is as a kind of radical self-awareness. It's about doing an honest audit of your own life, looking at your career, your relationships, your possessions, and asking yourself that tough question: am I holding this with an open hand or a clenched fist?
5. Let's talk about this number. It's pretty central to this practice. 5 times a day, the opening chapter of the Quran is recited in Muslim prayer. And what's so fascinating is when you look at the core of this constant, repeated prayer. The main request isn't for money, or success, or even for safety.
That's it. That's the whole ask. The fundamental request is purely directional. It's just, aim me correctly, and I'll trust that the rest will fall into place. It's the prayer of Moses, that radical openness, but encoded into a daily ritual, a constant realignment. And this really is the ultimate takeaway. This is the source of real strength, of real power. It's the freedom that Alexander the Great saw in that guy sitting in the sun. A freedom so profound it made the most powerful man in the world feel completely powerless. And you know, just like it was for Diogenes, the simple good things, the sunlight, are always available to us. The trap is when we let our own stuff, our status, our ambitions become an obstacle, when we let them block our own sunlight.
So I'll leave you with this question. What are the keys that you are carrying around every single day? And are they things that are serving you, or have you, maybe without even realizing it, become a servant to them?